Did you have any altercations where like you're having a conversation with somebody and they found out you're pro-life and they were like really nasty to you? Because I have certainly had those situations.
Yes, I do have. Well, I think it's a funny story. I might not have thought it was funny when it was happening, but I knock on this door and nobody answers. And so I go and I put my door hanger on the door. I turn around and I start to walk off the porch. I'm with one of my close friends. And I hear the door open behind me. And so I turn around and this woman steps out of her door and she goes, "Excuse me, can I help you?" And so I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting, ma'am. My name's Kaitlyn. I'm running to be your state representative, and I'm just out here talking to voters and seeing what they care about." And she takes my door hanger off the door, looks it over, looks back up at me, and she goes, "Well, what are you going to do about women's rights?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'd love to hear more about what you think and, what you care about. Could you elaborate a little bit more?" And she goes, "Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean. I have my body and you have your body. And no one can tell me what to do with mine, and no one can tell you what to do with yours." And so I look back up at her and I say, "Well, ma'am, I'm pro-life, so I guess we'd have to agree to disagree on that." And she just starts, wagging her finger in my face and shouting
How
at
old
me.
was she?
She was probably in her 60s or her 70s.
I was going to say she's an old lady.
And she starts shouting at me, "Shame on you, shame on you." And so I'm just trying to
Did
get
she
away.
get a pink pussy hat on too?
She didn't, but she would have been. And so I start backing away from her, and at this point I'm almost falling off of her porch. And I'm like, "Ma'am, have a good day. I'm going to leave now." And then to top it all off, she goes, "Did you just tell me to have a good day?" And I'm like, I walked away, but I was like, I talked to my friend after. I was like, "What? Did she want me to tell her to have like a really bad day? Like, what did she want me to say?" And we got back in my car and we just had to like sit there for a moment and be like, "Wow, did that really happen?" So that was
I'm actually surprised you didn't have any worse stories.
Yeah, nothing worse than that.
You obviously weren't door knocking in Bozeman, because
No.
Bozeman is it's like a little mini Sacramento in Bozeman.
Yeah, we call it Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, yes. I was just in Bozeman this summer. We were driving through, and I was like, "Holy cow!" Just in 2 years, I hadn't been back in 2 years, and I was shocked by. I mean, there's a reason they don't like Bozeman and Yellowstone. We go to it sometime. Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, they had the Whole Foods now, which is fantastic for that. But everything else was terrible. Yeah, no, it's funny because when you were saying this, I was like, it's an old gray-haired lady, because that's what we see. And we're not ageist. We love people of all ages, and I'm not saying old to be demeaning. I just don't have a better vocabulary. But it's interesting because like when we're at the Women's March or all these other events, the meanest people are older women. And so it's like they were young girls, like when Roe was handed down, or they were like in high school, college age when Roe was handed down. And so I think a lot of them might have, obviously be post-abortive themselves. There's something going on there. And so the anger just like comes out, and like for them to attack young girls, it's pretty desperate. So that's really interesting. What I guess, how did your experience of starting a Students for Life group at high school, having all the like the little drama that you had we had to work through, how did that, or did it help you at all in running? Or you also have a personal story. You were adopted, which I just found out. I had no idea. How did that help you, or influence your decision to run? How did those things kind of play in?
Yeah, absolutely. Both of them did, for sure. I'll start with the adoption part. So my younger brother Luke and I were both adopted when we were born. He is 16 and I'm now almost 19.
Oh, you're so old. So old.
And so my parents had tried for a while to have children of their own, but they couldn't. And so they decided to adopt. And my birth mom, she did a lot of drugs, and I was born in a very tough situation. I suffered withdrawals for about the first 8 weeks of my life. The doctors really didn't know if I was going to survive. I was born full term, but I was the size of a preemie when I was born. And so I asked my mom about, what that experience was like. We just had an adoption tax credit bill go through the Montana legislature as well, so I got to, share that aspect of it. They're always like, well, pro-lifers don't care about babies after they're born, but here we are, advocating for pro-family policies to help more people adopt.
Yes, and Christians are the highest demographics to say they're going to adopt or actually adopt.
Yeah, and so I asked my mom, is there something memorable that I could share with this committee as to what your experience was like? And she told me that after I was born, my birth mom was standing outside the hospital, and she overheard her say to her friend, finally, a guilt-free cigarette. And that has really stuck with me because I wasn't born into, what a lot of people might classify as the ideal situation. But now I know that didn't determine my value as a human being. That didn't determine the amount of success I can have in my life. That didn't determine what my future had to be like. And so that personally very much motivates me to stand for life, because I know that there are so many other children out there in situations like the one that I came from, and they deserve that chance to, live a prosperous life as well. And so that certainly plays into, the motivation behind me being pro-life, especially wanting to protect life in law. And then when it comes to starting a Students for Life group in high school, I think the number one thing that taught me was perseverance and grit, because when I first tried to start this group, I, made a post on my Instagram, I think it was, or Snapchat maybe, trying to recruit some other people to get involved. And I put my phone down. Growing up, I was an avid ballet dancer, so I went to the studio for probably 4 hours that afternoon, and I came back and I picked up my phone, and my phone had blown up. People were in my DMs, people were texting me. There was even a petition on change.org that said something wild like, ban Helena Students for Life from Helena Public Schools. And I was like,
damn, they move fast.
They do. And I was like, wait a minute, I haven't even started this group and they're already trying to ban me? What is happening?
Oh my gosh.
And so I got home, and this was probably the first time I'd ever experienced so much just hate and resentment and pushback. And I remember sitting in my bedroom, just like looking at all of these comments and messages and being like, what am I going to do? And there were tears, and I was just like, Mom, I don't know why everyone hates me so much. Like, what is going to happen? And I just remember her telling me, Kaitlyn, if you're going to go down this road, you have to learn to be able to deal with stuff like this. And so in that, literally. And so in that moment, I made the decision, I'm not going to let them stop me, because if I do, then I'm doing their job for them, and I'm giving them exactly what they want. And so I decided I was going to, push on and continue. And I'm glad I did, because we got a good core group of young pro-lifers in Helena, Montana. And later that spring, we actually hosted an event with U.S. Senator Steve Daines, who's the founder of the Senate Pro-Life Caucus, and a variety of other speakers, including Alex Clark, who gave a wonderful...
You invited me. I still feel bad.
It's okay. It's okay.
It was a lovely event.
It was. We had over 500 people stuffed into a barn.
I saw Senator Daines. He's like, yeah, I'm going to Helena to speak to some of your students. I was like, you're going to that? And I didn't even go. I felt so bad.